There's Dan. We are opening the meeting of the Sun Valley Safety Committee at 2:02 p.m. on February 20th. And I'm calling the meeting to order. First, I want to recognize our land acknowledgement statement. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we gather today on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish Peoples, and our anti-racism statement, which can be found on We Stand Against All Racism, and the statement can be found on the website. In attendance, we have myself, obviously Spencer, Debbie Davolio, Judy White, Kolleen Mitchell, and Danielle Harris. Danielle, you're still muted. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, we got you.
All right, I got it fixed.
All right.
I did.
Sorry.
Hi.
So, and Danielle Harris, so that should cover everybody. We do have a quorum. First, I need an motion to adopt the agenda for today. Would somebody like to make that motion?
I move we adopt today's agenda.
Second?
I second that.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. And it looks unanimous. We have a new member, Danielle Harris. Welcome, Danielle.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so obviously my name's Daniel Harris. I've been up in Sun Valley for about just over 2 to 3 years. Married, have 3 kids. Listening to a few meetings. I could hear the last meeting. There's some frustration with things kind of falling apart once things gets going. My experience, I've been with Los Angeles Fire Department for about 20 years now. I'm a paramedic, I'm an engineer. I've done brush fires. I've worked with the CERT team. I've been on a lot of stuff with dealing with safety, evacuations, and things like that. So the free time I do have, I'll try to give as much as I can to help the community out.
Yeah, I welcome you.
Hey.
And I do have I've read your resume, so I do have some ideas. Announcements. Identify goals and responsibilities in our charter, plan events, programs, encourage involvement in the community, and recruit. We now have a full committee, so we do not need at this point to recruit new members. Promote events, develop articles for the View, and report to the board, which we did in the meeting on the 13th. Program updates. We're going to start with Judy White on the Firewise program. It was introduced at the last board meeting. And I know Rick has talked to Michael Bennett, the general manager, and they have a proposed date of May 12th from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. in the dance barn.
Yes. That's the good news. Yes. And we have Robert Walters from Whatcom Conservation District is looking forward to being there again. And he will plan to show his wonderful, very important video on embers and the danger it presents and how to deal with that. And we're going to focus just on his presentation, and then Mitch Knowles is available the same night, so we're delighted about that. And we also had expressed the idea that we have a Sun Valley community member who had an assessment done by Robert or one of his team to speak for a couple of minutes about their experience. And so he thinks that's a great idea, and he will give us a couple of names once he confirms with them, that they'd like to do that. So we're going to focus on just those 2. And we're going to have plenty of times for questions and answers. And I think both of the speakers are really looking forward to it, and I am too. Let's see. So now we're just working out the details. This time I'm hoping we'll get a really good video afterward that we can keep on our website that people can go back and watch it and really hear everything and get a gist of it. And what we need now from the committee is we need all of you to come. We need you to bring your family. We need you to bring your friends. We need you to bring your neighbors. We need you to talk it up every chance you get. We need you to, if you see it on social media, chip in with a comment and support. We just need as much overall support as we can get. I don't know what the turnout is going to be like since a lot of people were there last year and we had a great turnout. Does that mean they're going to come back? I'd love to think so, but I don't know. And then we have to reach other people. Some were not available and really wanted to be there. Maybe more people have heard about it. So I just don't know. So we really have to get the word out and we really have to show up. Any questions about that night?
So for clarification, Judy, Robert Walters is the name from the Conservation District.
Yes.
And he'll be presenting, and will Michael Bennett be presenting?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So the other person would be Mitch Knowles?
Right.
Okay. And he's the fire, I'm trying to write this down. Tom asked me to do the minutes. So Mitch is the fire chief, district number 2?
Right.
Okay.
And we're also going to need to propose a budget to the board, find out what this is going to cost. I don't think there's any charges for setup or anything like that, but refreshments.
We didn't
Anything we can offer.
We didn't offer anything last year. The timing from 6:30 to 8, we certainly could, but we didn't deal with that last year. We had so much going on. We could add that in. Another one thing that I think is very important would be, as they did last year, rent a large screen for the video. And Robert will probably have some slides to put on that screen as well. So I think that should be part of what we provide, and it will cost us to rent that. I don't know how much it was spent last year, but we could find that out, I guess. And that would be the only cost other than refreshments that I'm aware of. Everything Robert does is free, including all of his assessments to all of our community. So, and Mitch, same with him. So I don't know what else we would be needing to put out money for.
One thought I had, and I know this is under new business, but would this be a good opportunity to offer go bags?
Well, we talked about that, but I'm thinking that we should do that as a separate thing. Because it can really, it's an important thing, and I think it should be offered, but I'm thinking hopefully we can do that as a separate presentation.
Okay.
Because it seems like the one that we're offering is so important right now, especially after the LA fires. I think that, the old joke, lit a fire under people to try to want to figure out what to do. So we don't want to lose that momentum. Go bags are extremely important. And also there's the, what was the name of it, Kolleen? You and I were there at the library, Bellingham Library, and it was on neighborhood
mapping.
Neighborhood mapping. Yeah. I was hoping we could do a joint one with that, with the man who was there for that one, and he could.
That's Greg Hope. Yep.
Yeah. Greg Hope. Hopefully he would be able to be available to do a separate one that could be a joint. He can do both of those. So
it would be really advantageous if prior to this event, we have that secondary event planned and a time and date, because we are going to have a captive audience, right? People are showing up who are interested. That is a perfect time to introduce. We can make this like a series, right? Throughout the year, there's a series of things that are happening. Our next in the series, for the people who are attending, that's the perfect time to invite back. And then the second part I wanted to mention is that we really need to have an organized marketing plan for the event. And I appreciate all of us doing our individual social media, et cetera, outreach, talk to our neighbors. The most effective tool we have is the association e-blast list. And so I wondered, Tom, if you would be willing to, as a board member, interface with staff and come up with some kind of like, ask them for some kind of timeline and plan so that we can begin teasers early. We start talking about it. We put it, we need to have a plan. Like, is it going to go on the views next? We have it in the views each month until that time, which we should start as soon as possible. Can they put that, can we have a safety committee section beginning to communicate that event starting now with the next e-blast that goes out? The earlier we start, the more often we communicate the event, the more effective it's going to be. And we all know that that e-blast is our most effective communication tool with the community as a whole. But I think we need to have, like, on paper, a plan, working with staff for them to have some kind of timeline and when they're going to start, what they're going to do to help promote the event.
You're talking about from the board and other staff, or?
No, I'm saying just as, because we're just a committee.
Right.
When the committee communicates.
Well, don't say just a committee, you're very important.
Okay. When the committee, I'm asking, can we communicate with appropriate staff members requesting a plan over time, beginning as soon as possible? That would include having something in the views, something, and all of the views leading up to, and if we can plan that secondary event sooner than later. I have Hope's email, or Judy, feel free to, you can do your thing, contact him. We can start. I just feel like the marketing is crucial, and I feel often we wait a little too late for these events and we rely just on one or two little ads. And so I'm saying the more people see it statistically, they're going to engage. We have to see it multiple times. And we have that opportunity. So I'm saying, can we engage staff, have a commitment that they're going to put it in the e-blast, that they're willing to put it in the views, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think that would be difficult. Other than a go bag program, what would be the other agenda that would go along with that?
This could be an item that we talk about today, briefly, but Judy has, of all the things that have been discussed, these could be, like she was saying, logically, like, let's just start with this program, have a separate program on neighborhood mapping. We could do that all by itself. We could then plan out 2 months later, so that people can expect that this is ongoing, that we are active, we are actively working for the community. We have resources, we're offering these resources. So I honestly think that the community mapping in and of itself is an entire thing. Greg does an excellent job. He has offered to come out. He's been very active with our CERT trainings that we've been having here last year. And he said, whatever you guys need, I'll be there. And I think that so essentially Judy just presented 3 separate things that we could have planned out. We just need a timeline. So we have neighborhood mapping. He already has a program developed. If we get a hold of Greg and form a timeline, and then we have go bag preparation, which I think in and of itself, we could have a presenter. It's a whole discussion, so that each thing that we are offering to the community is focused. Right? Because there's so much to talk about with safety, but each of these events, if they're focused, I think that those who attend are going to get more out of it. The sooner we start communicating these events and we ourselves organize in terms of, like, what are our dates, for these things. And then the community starts to expect, like, oh, my HOA, my safety committee, like there are regular ongoing events in the efforts towards a safer community.
Colleen, can you give a little bit more description around neighborhood mapping?
So, and I'll say his name again because he's awesome, Greg Hope. He's with the city of Bellingham. And so essentially, you're looking at your immediate area. So we break our, if we look at our HOA map, it's vast. And we know geographically, we vary from gate to gate. And so this is kind of making little microsystems where you get to know your neighbors. Like, for example, my neighborhood, we have like 4 streets. And on those streets, we had organized a Facebook group where we were regularly communicating. And so it's actually mapping out a very small portion of the community. And there's a recommendation, Judy, I don't remember how many houses, but a very small amount of houses so that oh, this person over on this street, they're elderly in an emergency, we need to check on them. Mm-hmm. Or, right? So you get to, because there's just too much to cover in the entirety of our HOA. And so it's us making little, like literally mapping streets, marking homes of at-risk folks who might need more attention or checked in on. Maybe down the street, I know that, for example, like there are 3 of us who are healthcare providers on my street who are, there's a nurse down the street, whoever, what are our resources? And, and so it's taking the small pieces of Sudden Valley and getting to know one another so that in an emergency, and oftentimes people can organize and meet. So yeah, and Judy, please, you can fill in any gaps in terms of my explanation of the neighborhood mapping.
Yeah, there's actually a program about it that's kind of nationwide, and they even have handouts that you can use if you want. There's a sign you can put in your window, like needing help or all clear, that kind of thing. There's all sorts of support that they can give. And so one of the things about Greg is that he is paid by the city of Bellingham. And this way I understand it is he's welcome to come out here outside of Bellingham when he's free, that they're supportive about that. But things may change with finances and all, I don't know, but that's the way it's been up to now. So we'll see. I hope he's good. He's really good.
Well, I think that would be an appropriate line item for any budget in this HOA to pay someone. I mean, I imagine it's a minimal fee to his time is valuable, his skills are vast. To give him some compensation for his time to come out, I don't think would be a big ask.
Yeah, just needs to be specifically requested, right? Is that right, Tom?
Right.
I know at this point, on my street, we have 30 houses plus some other side streets, but we host a neighborhood block party every year. So we have everybody's email addresses, everybody's phone numbers. So this is probably something we need to add to our block party agenda.
Mm-hmm. It's
That'd be
perfect.
very simple.
It's perfect. Yeah. You're way ahead of a lot of the neighborhoods. That's great.
Oh, they're fun. Everybody wants to do something fun. They're normally in September. But yeah, that's something we need to look into, as well as escape routes.
Yes.
And
I think
evacuation plans.
As what Kolleen was suggesting is that we get on this issue really quickly. What I think we could at least start with is a save the date immediately. Just saying, save the date, here's what we're going to do, and not go into a lot of material about everything, but just a quick save the date. It's going to be this time, this place, here's going to be there, and more information will be out soon. At least we can get people hopefully looking forward to it and putting it on their calendar.
Tom, would it be helpful, like if Judy made a suggestion list of how we want to, or if the committee as a whole made just like a small suggestion for marketing, like what are we asking? Like you're saying, save the date, like, right? And when do we want that to come out? And then next month, like, can we make a organized request rather than kind of a vague request. And then they can say, yes, we can, no, we can't, here's what we can do, but it would at least be something to start from.
If Judy would be willing to do that, I think it would be extremely helpful.
Sure. The issue though is I'm not prepared to do like a lengthy.
No, just an agenda list with.
Just date, like I'd like an e-blast to go out at this date. I think it'd be great if you're in the views.
Yeah.
Does anybody have
Okay.
any idea of how many residents actually are signed up for the e-blast, what the percentages?
Is staff tuned in?
You know, I'm curious because I've never seen that as a real effective form of communication. You know, how many people actually read them?
Having been on the communications committee, this was 2 years ago, but at that point it was quantifiable, and in terms of like how many people were being reached. So that would be a question for, do we even have a staff IT person at this point? Like we
Staff
had
IT? Well, Spencer is our staff IT person.
Okay, so Spencer would likely know, right? He probably also has the data to see how many people are opening, actually reading, engaging with emails, right? He has that. He has the ability to. So that would be something we should ask staff.
I'd have to talk to him offline on that, but
yeah.
Yeah, I just had something to kind of piggyback off of keeping things going. I know when you send out that e-blast, I think one thing that's a good idea is to also try to survey the community. There's a lot of people in the community. Everyone has different ideas and different options, but with regards to safety, maybe that would get us a list if we could send out like a survey, ask people to send out, hey, what are you most concerned about? Or what would you like to have someone come in and talk about? What would be interesting? And then also with the meeting coming up in May, it would be nice to actually have like a sign up sheet. That way we could see how many people are supposed to show up, how many people want to show up, and then who actually shows up. Because a lot of times you'll get, 50, 60 people that sign up, and then you'll get 20 people that show up. And a lot of times the issue with that is that the topic that they want to hear is not there. So it's one thing for us to put out, hey, we're going to have a safety presentation in May. But once you narrow it down to it's strictly on Firewise, that might make people go, oh, well, I don't even know what Firewise is. So just kind of figured out a way to get that language out there to get people to like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Burning embers falling on my house. That's something I like to know about. Or, okay, let's see what the next meeting's going to be about. So that's kind of something I was kind of thinking about.
That would be, staff has control of our social media accounts. And so whoever, it's not super active at this point, I don't believe, but like there's like a Sun Valley Recreation page on Facebook. I'm using Facebook just because it's what most of the demographic that live here uses, I'd say. And there's also a Sun Valley Community Association page. That page could could create an event. In that event, that could be put onto all the major groups where people are talking. And then there's at least two, which I think there's probably 3,000 people between the two groups, and they can put interested. And then staff can kind of look at and say, oh, look, like 100 people said they're interested. 50 people said they're going. And that platform reminds them. They get a little notice like, oh, there's an event happening, right? We do have in the past, and Tom, this is like what I'm hoping the board is a little more like assertive with trying to encourage staff to utilize, but surveys are absolutely like of the utmost importance in a resident-centered HOA. And we have the capacity, like we were told before that it's so expensive to send out a survey. It is absolutely not expensive. I've talked to even people on the finance committee. We have, there's what is it, chimp mail or
Survey
the-
Monkey,
Survey
there's all
Monkey.
types, Google,
Yeah.
Google Sheets, Google,
Yes.
Google
And I
Tasks.
think, I feel like safety committee could be at least the first to prompt a quarterly survey. We have every season we have some, and it could be general stuff, but I mean, if 4 times a year, the association makes a formal reach out for feedback, that creates a relationship that's very different than what we have right now with our residents, right? That they're invited to answer back with like the association saying, I want to hear from you, right? What's important to you? Are these issues? And we could start that because it's very easy. Like you had just said, if you'd be willing to create the survey or something, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you'd be really great at that. You could create a survey and then we could ask staff to do that in the next month or so prior to the event. It's something that we have the capacity to do. It's inexpensive. It's 2025. We have the technology. We just need to do it.
Yeah, I know there are people on Nextdoor that put out surveys all the time. That I have almost completely signed off on social media. I'm not looking at it hardly at all anymore. I had a situation come up a couple of months ago that regarding my aunt's estate that involves quite a bit of money that is now taking up a whole lot of my time and is going to be for the next several months. Had I known, I would not have run for the board. I didn't know this was coming.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that caught me completely by surprise. So I'm going to do everything I can. There are some things that I really want to work on. AM 1610 is something I really want to see get going again.
Mhm. Yeah, I thought
And-
Tom's presentation was excellent.
No, it was, and it's very important. I remember were any of you here when that was running?
No.
Yeah, but maybe
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah, but I wasn't involved in the way I am now.
It wouldn't be that hard to get going.
It's anything.
Oh. Something went
Oh.
away.
Colleen just,
Oh, there we go.
She's back. So anyway, we will keep moving forward. We have proposed to the board that the safety committee become a standing committee rather than an ad hoc committee.
Yes.
That's going to have to be voted on in November.
Good.
I think they are willing to take a look at that. So
Good.
we'll keep it.
I suggest that I work on this like calendar of what we want to plan and connect with Colleen about it and I'll do up a draft and send it to Colleen and get her input. Between
Right
the
on.
two of us, we'll get that going right away. Is that okay with you, Colleen? We lost her?
Yeah, she's
I'll
gone.
assume it is, and I'll be in touch with her.
Well, she's got to come back because the next one is about her school safety update.
she might have had to.
Oh, there she is. Colleen, are you back with us?
Not with video.
And not with audio either, it looks like.
May I offer, as we wait, one more thing about what we talked about last time was last year, as I'd mentioned, there was a grant available for $4,000 from the Department of Natural Resources. And I was going to connect with them about whether there is another one this year available. But just after our last meeting, I found in the Seattle Times an article saying that the DNR is facing a $200 million funding freeze from the federal for wildfire prevention and response. $200 million is being withheld. So I don't think it's the time to hit them up for a grant. I think
Why
I'm gonna
am I
just
not
let that go right
surprised?
now.
Perfect timing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
Right
everything.
right before summer.
Yeah.
So there we are. That's what's happening.
I'm sorry to hear that one.
Yeah, that's really
I am not
disappointing.
surprised.
Wasn't it the DNR that Tom Wang, I'm
Good
forgetting, Ted Wang was
back.
suggesting that we speak with in order to be able to build the information boards down at the marina? Wasn't it DNR that maybe it was just that he had seen ones built by them?
Ah,
Yes,
Ah.
he had just listed an example, and it's not that, I mean, it's just a structure. It was
Okay.
just a little shelter. I think he was just noting that he noted how they had created it. Yeah, I don't think it had anything to
Okay.
I do have one quick question for everybody. No, I'll put it off later. Never mind.
Okay.
Colleen, I did mention that I would write up what you suggested, and I'll send it to you as a draft, and maybe you could put some input and we'll get it going. Is that okay? Okay,
Colleen's muted.
okay.
Sorry, I have dogs and such. I'm trying to keep out of the meeting.
Colleen, can you unmute, because next we would like your update on school bus safety.
Yes. So Tom, did you get my email earlier today? I sent I sent an email to safety committee, and I didn't know if by sending it, it went to everybody.
I did,
Got it.
Yes.
and I
is that
printed it out and I have it in front of me.
Yes. So,
Excellent work.
awesome. Yeah, I know we have to have multiple, we need to have at least 3 different quotes or whatever for each item, but I wanted to at least, I reached out to a reputable company, and I wanted to get an idea of like what the flashing timed lights. Most of the options are solar. I do not think that applies to where our bus stops are. And so, but we do have AC. I mean, we have electric available at each of them, at least within proximity. So that's what those estimates are for. And so those would be something that could be set on timers for during school hours, both in the morning and the afternoon. Similar to what you see in proximity to Geneva, or as you get close to a school zone, just the lights are flashing, it's drawing attention, it reminds people that there are children crossing, etc. And I'm working on, right now there's a company called, and I know we need various quotes, I just want to get an idea. Mac and Mac, I know there's one of their electricians is here in Sudden Valley, and they have been very, very nice to work with. I know at my house, and we had tried to get some quotes from them for working inside the barn with the arts group. So I'm going to reach out to Mac and Mac and just say, hey, do you do this kind of installation? What does that look like and cost? And send them what, the specs on what I had gotten the estimate for. We can choose whatever sign we want, right? So it's a sign, it's a light above and below that is flashing. That's basically what the school transportation folks had asked for. And then secondly, this is where I'm kind of, there's a lot of options, but I'm looking for an estimate on, they described it as a beacon, but just some kind of constant light that's sensor based, right? Turns on when it's dark, turns off when it's light, but something in that proximity that can light up and illuminate the area, because buses have a very hard time for a good portion of the year during the earliest hours where the smallest children are out, actually seeing the bus stop. So, and we're again, I'm referencing gate 5, gate 9, and gate 1. So I just, in that email, I wanted to say, that cost seems like a lot, $10,000 seems like a lot for anything. We're looking at like in more permanent safety measures in strategic areas, as we have an increase in residents and particularly young families, school-aged children. I can think of no better line item in our HOA budget. And I compared it to, because soon I think it's in about a year, but don't quote me. I could check with finance committee, but our mortgage, it's literally the cost of putting in these 3 lights that would be there for a prolonged period of time, is the same as what we're paying monthly in our mortgage for the lake house. So I just wanted to make a comparison. At some point that is going to be paid off in the near future. So I mentioned that insofar as like we have the capacity to put out that amount of money for something that's important. And yes, so that's where I'm at. I've reached out to Carl Lanham. He has different sources, so he may be able to give me names of who the city of Bellingham or the state uses when they install these types of timed lights. And so I reached out to him and asked him, can you help me find, sources to purchase these? And that would give us at least the other 2 we could reach out for and then pass along to the board. And so that's where it's at right now.
So the prices that are quoted here, are those just purchase price or do those include an installation?
So that's why I had mentioned I reached out to Mac and Mac. So that is just the price of the actual light, right? And then you'll see later, further down, it'll talk about like, there's a price for the pole. So it's just an idea of, just getting these lights. What do they cost? And then we have to look at what our installation costs. That's why I thought, hey, let's reach out to somebody who's very friendly with the community, and I can look to them and say, hey, this is what I'm looking at installing, and this approximate location with electric in proximity. What is a rough estimate of cost for installation? And I can work on that too.
Yeah, that was going to be another one of my questions is, what is the availability of 120 volt power in the locations where these would be needed?
Yeah, and that would be something for the electrician to survey. But if you look at, for example, gate 1, that's where security station is, right? There are lights there. There are other things that are illuminated. The firehouse is just on the other side of the drive.
I was more concerned about the upper gates.
There are lights like across the street. There is available electric at gate 5 within some proximity. Gate 9 for sure. There's actually an electric panel that's right there at the bus stop. So that would be part of asking the electricians, the professionals, to look at, be part of their quote for installation. But it is available.
And then we would be looking at 1 sign per location, 1 double-sided sign to go on one side of the street.
I mean, I think we would be 100% in a better place than we are currently if we began to assign one side of the street.
Like you're breaking up really bad.
Have 2 roads converging to that. So somewhere on the
You're breaking up really bad, Kolleen.
Everything.
I think we've lost her again.
Did she mention how many locations?
Well, that was going to be another question. How many locations do we need these at?
3 is what she had suggested.
Yeah, she had mentioned that.
3?
3, gate 5, gate 9, gate 1. And
the gate 1 location, is that inside gate 1 or is that crossing Lake Whatcom Boulevard?
I don't know, but I think being aware of the way that the kids cross the streets in order to be able to get to it, I think it would, in my mind, have to be both sides. And I don't know specifically about 5 and 9. I think those bus stops actually off right at the end of 5. But gate 1, there's kids who wait across the street in the where the mailboxes are. And then there are others that wait where the city bus also stops. So that gate might need to be looked at a little bit closer. There's also one coming up towards just around the vicinity of the older road or Alder Road, where there are easily 24 kids that get off the bus there and walk through a neighborhood. So
On Lake Welcome Boulevard, where the school bus stops are and the city bus, I would think that Whatcom County should put in a crosswalk and a regular set of flashing crosswalk signs.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, that's an important location because we have higher speed traffic there.
It's a good point.
And they're very fond of putting up crosswalks and flashing signs.
Do you know who we would talk to at the county level?
Colleen's got all that information.
Oh,
She's
okay.
working hard on this. You know, she's doing a great job.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry we lost her. Because how many locations and how many signs at each location? Well, I think we determined maybe 3. But I would think there would be more than that.
yeah, I think for gate 1, it's going to be at least 2.
And that's including Lake Whatcom Boulevard.
Yeah.
See, we have no control of traffic enforcement on Lake Whatcom Boulevard. And this would come under control of traffic enforcement. So I don't know if we could even put up signs on Lake Whatcom Boulevard. But Colleen's going to have that information, I'm sure. Well, unfortunately, we lost her. So moving along with the agenda, we talked about go bags and having that as a separate program. The next one is the addendum to the agenda that Rick put in there, and that was the access to the historical disaster preparedness plan. I don't know if any of you got a chance to look at that. I'm pretty sure it was developed in 1999. And
That was the only gate I
it
thought
must
too.
have been scanned in 1999 too, because I can't read it without getting it.
I think it was developed in 1985 and then scanned in 1999. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the plan itself probably isn't bad. I just can't read it. It gives me a headache.
But yeah, and they have a foreword that kind of describes what it is, but it's not really a very effective summary of what the approach is. So 151 pages of information is hefty.
Very.
And
Which the homeowners don't need. We need to find a way to condense this
right.
and make a pamphlet that we can send to the homeowners.
Yeah.
That's the first step. And
I think that almost an entire session ought to be focused on discussion of that plan and how to approach it, condensing it, updating it, condensing it, all of that.
Or maybe a subcommittee.
Yeah, I think
that could be, you know, and Daniel's name came to mind because this is kind of right up your alley, but you may not have that kind of time to devote.
Yeah, I kind of read, I skimmed through it. I read like the first 20, 30 pages, and it just really reminds me of something for first responders.
Yes.
And that's just kind of my take on it. And I think for the community, it's more of just who can we contact, who needs help, and where do you go from there? Because by the time, I think, like even it said in reference to the go bags in the pamphlet, it's saying 72 hours to have a go bag. And,
Mhm.
even with just that bomb cyclone that came through, some people are displaced, over a week, depending on where you're at. Like you could get in, but you had no power. So, a lot of things could be changed, a lot of things could be altered, and it also goes over almost every scenario, which we don't have control over. A lot of the talk is dealing with fire chief and the sheriff's office and things of that sort. I think the purpose for the HOA is more of if a disaster does happen, another bomb cyclone or a fire, where do you go to get information should be the first step. And I know in that book, it talks about Channel 10. I don't even know, is that even still a thing?
No, that's what AM 1610 was for. We have our own AM radio station.
Yeah.
It's
So
just not functional right now. Number one, because the fire station's closed and that's where they operated from. And we lost our communication officer that communicated the information to the operators that actually operated the station. They just put it on a loop tape, and it's school bus schedules and snow events, and it involves everything, but evacuation is also going to be a very important part of that.
yeah, and maybe that's something at the meantime, we could probably talk to the county about being included in something like that if something does happen in our area. Maybe the residents will be able to refer to that. Because right now, if something else happens, like I talked about relying on the e-blasts and say you don't have internet or you have no cell service. I mean, it doesn't really
Pretty much
do much for you at that point.
Right.
Pretty much anybody can get access to an AM radio.
Exactly. You can hop in your car. And you
Right.
should be able to tune up to the AM radio. So
It worked very well when it was working before, but the last administration poo-pooed it and shut it down.
just kind of let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Gentleman,
think there's,
gentleman last week who runs the station, can you remind me of his name at the last meeting?
Tom Fields.
Fields.
Yeah. Right. So former fire chief in Sudden Valley, 14 years. I think that it would behoove the committee to support getting that back up, because I think the gap in information in this discussion is that yes, as soon as that firehouse is in, there may or may not be a place for the tower. Was that part of the talk? And we have a ham radio group in Sudden Valley. We have people to run this, and
Yeah, the Sun Valley Ham Radio Group does own the equipment for the radio station.
yeah.
The new fire station is going to have special room for this radio station to operate from with emergency backup power.
Yep.
The only question was, are they going to install a large tower, which I'm hoping they do, and the antenna could go on top of that. But that's not going to be available until the end of next year.
Well, I think we could start talking to the community about its existence, because I think most people don't know that there is this 1610. Those signs were removed. I'm not saying put the signs up yet, but maybe an article in the Views would be really helpful about that station and that that's coming and what its function is and how it works and who runs it. I think that's a big piece of information that most residents don't have.
Yeah,
Is
that group is
anybody
very,
in writing for? Do you think he would be willing to write an article in the Views about it?
yeah, that group is very interested in getting it going again.
Yeah,
And
totally.
Yeah,
Can
some
we-
part of our,
Commissioner Norm Smith was the information officer that fed them information prior.
Mhm.
He's no longer with us. I don't know if we could get him back for just that purpose, but that's their biggest hurdle, really, is having
Yeah.
somebody to feed them information 24 hours a day.
Can we get just, again, the more we start small pieces of information sharing with the community, can we just start? I don't know what you're doing today with today's meeting, but and if you're busy, Tom, I get it. If we could maybe ask Rick on the actionable items, but can we reach out to that gentleman and see if he wants to do a small article for the Views about what they're working on, what's coming up next year, where it's gonna live?
They're really working on nothing. Everything they need is going to be available to them in the new fire station. Right now, they just need a place to operate from and incoming information. they're more than willing to start right away. I
That's why
can
we-
contact Tom, and I brought this up at the board meeting on the 13th, and the importance of getting it going again.
Yeah.
My next thought is maybe sitting down with Michael Bennett, the general manager, and getting more in depth with him. You know, we need a location. You know, we have the old administrative offices that are high. We need to get the antenna as high as possible.
Right. I guess I'm just saying, can we just like primary, like communication, just start writing, like the safety committee, when you read off the things that we are you know, what are we here for in the beginning? Can we ask if he'll write a small article about what 1610 is? Because I think that we all here, you can't assume that we, you know, everybody knows what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm gonna tell you how many people are on this Zoom right now, and it's, you know, I'm not sure, but I'm going to say there's probably not a whole lot of folks watching this or who take the time to watch these meetings. So I just don't want to assume that the community at large has this information. And that's the whole point, is like, we need to start talking and start communicating that about the things that our little group knows about, but maybe not everybody knows about. And the views articles are really helpful. So I was just wondering if you guys have his contact information. Could you ask him, as an action item, could you ask him if he'd be willing to describe 1610, what it was before and what it will be in the future?
Oh, I can contact him. I've got his, you know,
Awesome.
Nick and I attended a meeting at his house for a couple hours,
Okay.
and he's very passionate about this.
Yeah.
It's just that I'm concerned about writing an article in the views that we don't step on too many toes. And thinking we're trying to get ahead of the board or the executive committee and general manager. And I'm willing to talk to them.
I assume, like, is that not part of like our committee? Like, you take this information back to the larger board, right?
Right.
And then at your meetings, the GM is there. So I'm just assuming all of this information is going through that filter. So if at your next board meeting, you say, hey, here are some topics the safety committee meeting would like for the views, is this okay? We have these experts to write these articles. I guess I just assume that information is getting to all those people, and that would not be stepping on toes, because they're all
Kind of opened the door to that in the last meeting. It did seem to have some reception. I need to sit down probably, or myself or Rick. I'll talk to Rick about it. One of us needs to sit down with Mike and get his viewpoint on it and start discussing. Look, I want to get this going as soon as possible. It's not that difficult. It doesn't require much power. It does require some backup power, emergency power, but it's just a small generator that Sun Valley has somewhere. We need to find it.
Tom,
Oh,
is it-
Only the antenna.
You have to talk to Norm. Norm sent me and I will forward the information he sent me. He sent me after he was listening to our last meeting. He spelled out what happened to that generator and a bunch of other information. So if you guys, I asked him to email you guys, but if you didn't get that, I will copy paste everything he wrote me about that and share it with the committee.
Great.
And I like Norm. Norm's a friend.
Yeah.
And I can't approach him offline on this right now. But
No,
I would
he
love
and
to see.
I have a discussion. He and I have
Yeah.
a direct
Yeah.
line of communication. So
Norm's a great guy.
I just want to share with you what he has already shared with me. And he asked me to share with you. So,
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah. And the size of generator we need wouldn't cost $700, you know, if we had to buy another one.
can
The
I have a
main thing
question?
is location and a communicator to communicate the information they need to put on the loop. And it's available. And I want to see that happen. I liked it when it was here before. You know, they had snowplow schedules. And as far as evacuation, you know, when it comes to, especially in a type of fire, we've got to start evacuations a week in advance if we know it's coming this way. We can't wait till the last minute. We have to have residents that would be willing to do that.
There's a good tie over from the neighborhood mapping and the kind of planning for communication flow in an evacuation plan as well.
Mhm.
So that was kind of brought to the surface in the plan. I think it was agenda or Annex N or something, but maybe that would be an offshoot from the neighborhood mapping,
I agree.
kind of target where people would be interested and can see how it could affect them personally. So. Other thing that I was going to ask is, last meeting, there was a lot of discussion, or at least attention, to any kind of a temporary location for the antenna. And is it possible to think about that antenna and space being available at the upstairs of the Welcome Center?
It's too low. They would put it too low. The old admin building on top of the restaurant, I'm thinking would be the highest location we could get it at this point.
On top of the restaurant. That's okay. So
And give them a
the
small
Lake
operating
Louise
space
Welcome
in it.
Center is too low. That's because it goes
Yeah,
down.
it's lower than the fire station, and
Okay.
they can't reach everybody at the elevation it's at right now.
Can
Nor
we
can they
ask-
reach everybody at the boathouse, right?
They can probably reach the marina.
At the marina, they could reach everybody if they had an antenna on that building.
Oh, no, not at the marina. No, that would be way too
Okay.
low. That's even lower than the fire station. Yeah, we need to get it as high as possible.
Right,
So can
right.
we
I,
put on our action items to ask Tom to give a suggestion for that temporary location, since he is running the ham radio club? I think he would be positioned well to make that recommendation.
he was part of that discussion.
Right.
Last
But
meeting.
can we take it a step further and say, do you have a recommendation in terms of, because I didn't hear from what he had said any specific place he thought would be an ideal place. So can we ask him if we
The
I could write
discussions
that.
we had was at Barn 8, there's open space on the first floor of Barn 8. But then you've got that big hill behind Barn 8 that would block transmission. You know, it has to be as high as possible and as unobstructed as possible. You know, the antenna itself is only about 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
And we could extend it on some kind of pole on top of the roof, get it as high as we possibly can. The only thing I can think of really is the old administration building and the golf course or golf club building and restaurant.
A lot of trees.
Yeah, there's not, compared to where it's at right now, it's about the same, I would say, tree wise. It's easy to spot. It's on top of a light pole in the fire department parking lot.
Yeah.
But we need to get it high. And the cable that you run from the antenna to the equipment's fairly expensive, so we want it as close as possible to the equipment. So I will talk to Rick about that, about approaching Michael Bennett and Tom. I'm sure Tom would be more than willing to write an article. It's just that what we have him write the article on at this point. You know, get the community involved.
So
I think
people don't even know about 1610. Like,
Yeah,
most
you're
people
right.
don't know what it is.
Even just the history of its availability.
Yeah, and you know, the problem I see is if you write an article about it saying it got closed by a previous administration, then we're putting pressure, undue pressure.
I don't
upfront.
think that has to be part of the article, right? That does not have to, we don't have to get into the hairy areas where we where there's, you know, political or other tensions. This can be matter of fact. This is what it is. This is who operates it. This is what it can be. And you guys preview, the board previews, whoever sends forth the articles, you guys preview the articles anyway, right?
I can't answer that question. I don't know who previews the articles. I'm
Well,
sure
I know
somebody does.
they go through a filter and they're not just, you know, so it could be viewed to see if there's any issue. And when you speak to him to ask him, I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable just to say, like, keep it matter of fact without referring to like previous boards or blaming anybody, but just more of like
Informational only.
yes.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yep,
I think
I'll talk to-
that's
I'll
a
talk to
great
Rick about it.
idea. We should also maybe if he could throw in talking about the neighborhood mapping, if they do an article, I mean, because then you'd have someone interested in looking at the towers, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, what's this neighborhood mapping? It might start getting people interested.
It'd be kind of like a neighborhood watch program, only you're looking out for neighbor safety and
Yeah, it's a good way to get the ball rolling. Because like Colleen's saying, right now nobody knows. You know,
it looks
probably
to me like we
95% no one knows. So start getting it out
it looks like we've got some good topics for the views. And that would be one of them. And I'll talk to Rick and see, you know, ultimately it's kind of his decision. But I will present it to him. And this is something I'm very interested in, as well as evacuations.
Yeah, I had a question too. Does the security know what the operations are for evacuations at all? Like, is that something they've been talked to about,
No
or
comment.
gotcha?
Nothing.
Yeah, because they have duties in that
They have
You know,
considerable duties.
that they're supposed to do according to the disaster preparedness plan.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That
yeah,
was-
and that's, I think that's one of the things. If there's anyone who should be held accountable, it should be those security guards.
The thing
from the
is, though,
get-go.
their contracts are completely different today than they were then, meaning the charge they have, their responsibilities, their contract is very minimal,
And
right?
there's only two, right? Isn't
At
that?
any
I
one
think
time,
there's one.
there's
one.
one on duty at a time.
Oh man.
So it's really non-existent, in my opinion.
Yeah. I one of the things I kind of want to bring up too is just like how often do we invite like the sheriff's office down or invite the fire department down just for some of the events? Like, is that like a normal thing we do throughout the year, or
Well, the fire department attends a lot of them. The local fire chief lives here in Sun Valley.
Yeah.
So
But
he's
the
more than
sheriff's-
willing to. Sheriff, I can't answer.
yeah.
They're really open, and I want to say like, for like, I did the CERT training last year at Sudden Valley, which I want to just mention now that you said that, but like we need to make sure that we're trying to have that happen or encourage that to happen every year here, or at least be willing to open it to host it. But anyway, they came out to a lot of our meetings. Like they were extremely supportive. We actually had the fire department like came and did like when we were doing our action, you know, the last class where we're playing out the scenarios, they actually brought in medics and played the whole thing out. I mean, it was amazing. And then we had another CERT people who are like in the process of being trained, the old guard who has been here a long time. We met like last month, and you know, the head of deputy chief of, and I'm going to say it's emergency management. He comes to a lot of the events, and Chief Knowles shows up. So I think
that's good. They're active.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're around and they're active.
Yeah. All they need is
It's the
information.
sheriffs that kind of fall apart, is what it kind of sounds like. I mean, getting the sheriffs involved, I mean, that would fix a lot of issues too, getting them around the community more. especially when it comes to the marina in the summertime, and then also the speeding in the neighborhood. I mean,
So they have no,
They
there's
have
a,
no jurisdiction.
they're all off,
yes, they cannot, they
They're
are,
all private property.
yeah.
so they can sit out on the street, and that's about it.
They can sit on Lake Whatcom Boulevard and issue speeding tickets on Lake Whatcom Boulevard, and that's about it.
So, well, they're allowed to come in for anything over a felony, right?
Gotcha.
Anything less than a felony, they do not have jurisdiction inside and you know, so there's been discussions of like, I've talked to this because this is in terms of bus stop safety, but like, because we have no enforcement in terms of traffic inside Sudden Valley, and there, you know, Sergeant Paz of traffic in Whatcom County, the head of traffic, he, you know, he says that Sudden Valley's lawyer can talk to them and they can have some presence should they have the funding
Gotcha.
inside Sudden Valley, but we would have to give them some kind of legal permissions. It's something, some very complicated thing, but as it exists, they don't come in for anything greater than, you know, if you see them in here, like there's probably something very serious
Something
happening.
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the other segue is the safety committee. Like we used to have a deputy. We used to have a neighborhood deputy. And right now there are a bunch of Whatcom County folks in the pipeline to become officers, right? They're understaffed.
Yeah.
And I mean, we literally had 2 officers for the whole county like last year. I mean, can you imagine 2 for the entire county? But as I talk to them, you know, they're like, if Sudden Valley, like if the residents start asking and that's how we got a deputy out here before, a neighborhood deputy, right? And our population has grown exponentially that time. It's going to take an effort of the residents to reach out.
What is the current population?
About 7,200
Yeah.
Houses or people?
People.
people.
So 7,200 people and no deputies.
Right.
That we pay the taxes, but we get no representation.
Well,
Gotcha.
larger than the size. I mean, if you look at and you can look up the current numbers very easily, but I mean, we're larger than the town of like Blaine. I mean, like we're like the 4th largest town in Whatcom County. Should we have been a town? So that's like we do have a council member. It's changed this year, but these are all ways for us to communicate with the county. But we do have the potential. They did not say no to us pushing for having a return of a neighborhood deputy.
So that would be something, Tom, that'd be kind of cool to send up to the board if we could just kind of get that kind of going. In regards with the safety, because that also would help out with the emergencies too, having 2 means of contact. Because if you can't reach the fire department, you know, you want to at least have a reliable source in the sheriff's department to also talk to. It's always good to have more than just one option.
Tom Fields has a lot of very close relationships with the sheriff's department as well. It's just, you know, it's like was discussed earlier, it's budget. You know, are they willing to spend the money to have somebody like that available?
And
so far it's been no.
Yeah.
Well, it really is. It's not about that. Like, it's about us saying we have, you know, it's about organizing as a community, really. I mean, because we have the tax base. We have the tax base.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's for sure.
One of the things that reminded me when I read about the preparedness plan was how formerly we had a pretty good connection with the other agencies in the county, but we've lost that. And we have no one advocating for us. Larry Brown used to do a lot of that when he was on the board, but now we don't have anybody in the community advocating for us with anybody. And we need that. That's really crucial.
The community liaison.
Yeah, we're missing out on all kinds of things, not just sheriffs, but we're missing out on so much connection. They don't think about us when they make their planning. We need to remind them that we're here and it matters.
Need to
And
become
we
a
have no one
squeaky
doing that.
wheel.
Yeah, we need a designated representative from Sudden Valley who's an official. I think our last GM wasn't that interested in being that.
Judy,
but
we
maybe
used
our
to have
current one is.
we used to have an unofficial seat on the town council at Sudden Valley. So it wasn't an elected, but they welcomed us, and we lost that relationship.
Yeah, we lost a lot.
It was a board member who, like, because I was talking to our council member last year, who I think has moved on. And he said, we used to have good communication with Sudden Valley. Sudden Valley, I think it was a board member at the time, would come to county meetings,
Yes.
right? And knew what was happening. And there was a stronger connection. So I don't think that bridge is burned. I think if there were an interested board member, they could reach out to the town council. I think that they could show up to meetings. Those relationships have to be forged, and it has to be on the part of the powers that be. So like if a board member or if the GM, right, were interested and wanted to make those connections, I do not think that bridge is burned. It's just no one's asserting.
Right. And I recognize that everybody's got a lot on their plate. But perhaps they could appoint someone in that position. If it's not a particular board member or a GM or assistant GM, they could appoint someone who's good at that and interested in doing it. We just need somebody to be out there saying, hey, here we are, 7,200 of us, and we're not getting our share of anything.
It
One
seems to
question I have
me
is,
within the last year, there was a push to get a resident to run for the city council. And that is what we need. We need a resident that's on the council that would advocate for city, for
The
Sun
city-
Valley,
but wouldn't they need to live in the city to be on the city council?
or county council, whichever.
County council, okay. One question I have is, where does our new GM live? Does he live in Sudden
Right
Valley?
now, he's renting a house in South Lake.
In where?
South Lake, just down the street.
South
Oh.
Lake.
South Lake Whatcom.
Southern
okay.
part of the lake.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
renting a house down there, and he's former law enforcement. He
Oh, man,
he used to be a police officer and a detective before he
Okay.
got into management.
That's Michael Bennett.
Yes, and
Uh-huh.
he's very passionate about law enforcement.
Do you think he's planning to move to Sudden Valley?
They're looking at it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think that's always a bonus, to have somebody, because
I
nobody
agree.
knows Sudden Valley like the people who live here. And
agree.
like I'm wondering about, when I read this preparedness plan, again, they talk so much about the GM taking care of this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But if the GM's not here and can't get here, that's a whole issue.
He's
Also
close
with our,
by,
same with
and I
our,
know it's a feel out position for him,
yeah,
so if he's gonna stick with it long term, they're gonna move to Sun Valley.
cool. I'm
How
glad to
much,
hear that.
how long of a time is the fill it out? I mean, if you're
My guess was 6 months.
really,
He's a great guy. I really like Mike.
Good. One other question is about the maintenance staff. Does Mike live here? Maintenance supervisor?
I don't know. I can't
Yeah,
answer.
I believe he does.
Was that?
I'm pretty sure he does.
Okay, because I don't know how many of the maintenance people, because again, as I was reading the plan, it kept talking about maintenance will take care of this, that, and the other, but not if they can't get here, not if they
yeah,
don't.
that's why the revision of that plan, it needs to reflect the current reality.
Yes,
Can't be historical or aspirational.
right.
It really needs to reflect the current reality.
It does. It does.
It's like I learned during the bomb cyclone, we don't always even all just have to worry about evacuations. We need to worry about getting emergency services into Sun Valley.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that
one
would
of the-
help if our fire station was open.
Yeah, it's just
One
gonna
of the
double.
things that it does say is that in the evacuation annex, that when there is an evacuation, the gates of gate 9 and 13 would be closed on Lake Louise, so that would be the route that emergency services came in from Bellingham. So,
And that's an issue.
Yeah,
whether how
think?
realistic that is,
you
I
know,
mean,
they
again,
have
there's
difficult
so much.
egress as it is.
That's correct. Yeah.
One last thing, Colleen, we lost you there for a while. I had a question about your gate 1, school crosswalks. Or
Just the light, just the
just
light
a light.
at this
Is that on Lake Whatcom Boulevard or is that
No,
inside the gate?
no. All things that I'm discussing are on Sudden Valley property.
Okay.
Um,
What do you think the possibility is getting the county to install one of their fancy crosswalks on Lake Whatcom right there between the 2 bus stops? Across the street from each other, right there, you know.
I'm
near
gonna
the exit.
I'm gonna try to go through the red tape that I'll explain that I have encountered over the past almost 3 years. Our council member last, let me say, like 3 months ago, there was a meeting, and the meeting was to determine and approve this. I had spoken to Public Works. Public Works was at that meeting going to present their 6-year plan. That 6-year plan included their budget and et cetera. I invited and asked our council member who had contacted me, because that was, he was going to be voting on this 6-year plan, and I wanted to put forth that we need to be on it. And the things like those crosswalks with Public Works need to be on that 6-year plan, that we need minimally some measures and investment in safety in our community with 7,000 people. And imagine how many cars that is per home. I don't know at this point, but tremendous increase in traffic, little to no enforcement, right? We have a big problem. And that council member basically, and I don't think he's the council member anymore, but he basically completely ghosted me. I talked to Norm Smith about it because Norm knows him. And I said, I can't believe he didn't respond to Norm either. I asked him, I want to show up at the meeting. Norm was going to come with me to the meeting, and then he just completely ghosted us.
Wow.
So I am looking into, I'm not sure who the new council member is representing our area. That will be part of what I'm looking into. But the process would be getting on some kind of budget. It takes a lot of people. For example, Strawberry Point, everybody knows where that is roughly. They have the light, they have the speed monitor, right? It took that community, showed up in numbers to dozens of council meetings to get that to happen, right? So it's going to take, so it is not impossible to get on their radar, but it's going to take more than just like one person with a big mouth or, excuse me.
Yeah.
Or,
a
right?
state police officer lived there for a short period of time too.
Even that, right? So,
Who lives there?
He can get these things. There was a state police officer who
Yeah,
was present. Yeah.
I heard at one time the president of the community board lives there as well. Patel or whatever his name is.
If we decide that there are things that we want and we want funding from the county, let's just say just our committee could be the think tank. And we as individuals not representative of the Sudden Valley Community Association gather together and say, this is important to us. Come show up at this meeting, put it out there, invite people, right? Again, outside of the SVCA, independent of the functions of the board and the association. But as residents, if we come together, that is how it works. You basically have to show up at council meetings, let them know you're serious, let them know there's a problem, you know, basically kind of demand representation or whatever it is that we want. And if the first thing we want to talk about is safety measures, lighting, budget for more enforcement, that kind of thing, a neighborhood deputy, these are all, that is the pathway to getting things to change. And so I think it's possible, but I think it's going to mean, you know, having focused goals. What are the, you know, what are the primary goals? What does our neighborhood need first? And we're just people, we're just residents. And I'm not saying we know what's best for the community per se, but if we have some ideas and we find that, again, independent of SVCA, independent of this committee, we, you know, can communicate with each other, and we find that other parts of the community and other residents are concerned about these things, we have to show up at these town council meetings. And that's how these things get done. That's how they fund them. That's how the crosswalks get put in.
And
yeah.
we need to keep reminding them that we have, what, 5,000 votes out here? That's a good chunk.
That's correct. Right.
Yeah.
So, but remember, like, we're just kind of quiet, and the association does not have the charge to represent us in that way. So it's really about residents as individuals gathering together with purpose, and yeah.
So, though, in a sense, what we could do, we could organize and get all organized, and we could, I know, we could elect officers, and we could put in dues, and we could have those officers. Oh, wait, I think we did that. And we need to have those elected officials here in Sudden Valley figure out a way to advocate for us. Even if it's not them individually, they need to find out a way to get someone who is in that role.
Well, and that would be the way things work. That would be the ask of the president of the board, who represents the voice of the board in its entirety and is the only person who can direct the GM, right? So it's really going to be like, it's going to have to come from the board as a whole, filtered through the president to the GM, that perhaps we want a little more advocacy on our behalf with the county and our interface with the county in terms of safety. But that is going to have to be a charge for our elected board through that pathway.
I hear what you're saying. You're trying to be very diplomatic.
Yeah.
That's appreciated.
Residents can't tell staff what to do. That's it, right? Residents cannot direct staff members.
Yeah.
So, yeah, everything's on the table, I think, is possible, but it's going to take organizing, and it's going to take coming together.
Interesting.
It's a handful, and it's going to take some time, you know, and with safety, you don't have time. You know, safety is one of those things that you need to make happen right now. And due to past performance and what we've seen here, it's a hit or miss situation. You know, we have a safety committee, we don't have a safety committee. It's not important, it is important.
So if the members of this committee, in moving forward, I mean, I understand the idea that last time the work and effort was no longer available of the committee, and because it was ad hoc. But can the members individually commit to sharing any information that goes forward if they were to depart, so that standing committee was more feasible or guaranteed if individual commitments accompanied that? I mean, just a thought. I'm trying to figure out if all of this effort might not, it would go forward, but there's nothing formal about it until November. Is that my understanding of it?
I think that was what was discussed at the last meeting that we touched on. Like, we're putting forth all this effort and like strategic effort and meaningful effort and gathering, resources and connecting those resources with our community. And for that work to not be lost, as it has been in previous committees as ad hoc, we have to have, I believe that Rick had mentioned, a community vote to make this a permanent committee. I think there would be I feel like there would be little objection in the community to having a standing safety committee.
I agree.
Working on their behalf, right?
Yep.
And empowering said committee as perhaps previously or as in the bylaws it states, right? Which we do not function as it states, I don't believe. Yes. So I think you are correct in saying that until it is put up for a vote, this could be our efforts are, I don't know where they are. And I don't,
To do it other than at the AGM in November, it'd have to be an SGM, and those are fairly expensive. The board did seem receptive to making this a standing committee. I think it'll happen, or at least get on the ballot. And hopefully it will happen, but I can't see it happening sooner than November.
Mm. It will definitely help us not lose momentum as turnover happens at the end of the year in November. It's like it seems to take the holidays hit and then the weather hits and all of that, and we sort of lose momentum. I think that will help for that too. It could keep going, knowing we're going to keep going and not have to start all over again, getting permission to exist. We've already got that. And I think that'll make us lots more efficient and better able to help the community.
Sure.
Well, unfortunately, the one thing we
establish-
have working in our favor is all the disasters happening around the country.
Oh, boy. Yeah, you're right.
And that's
Right.
always on everybody's mind now. So,
Yes, gets the attention. Yes.
okay, so is there any other business to discuss? Daniel, I'd like you to start thinking about anything you would like to get yourself involved in. You look young, which means you probably have young children and you're still working. So
Yeah, I still got young kids, and yeah, I'm looking at some things. I'll make some phone calls, try to see where I can help out here.
okay.
Um,
Well, we're glad you're with us.
Yes.
I did try looking up the CERT team, but the website was down. I'm not sure if that's maybe it was just when I searched it out, but I'll try to find some more information on who the contact is for that
So is that community emergency response? What's the
team.
TS?
Community Emergency Response Team.
So I can put you in touch with Doug Bessel. He is the CERT official trainer. And I think it's BESTLE, Doug. But I have his email if you want to. I can just send it through the committee, or if you want to get a hold of me, I can connect you with Doug.
Okay.
He facilitates the training. I'm hoping that we can, as a committee, like just try to help encourage that training to happen. It was great. We did it in the barn. It was multi-level. It was very, very much what would occur, right? Where we are uniquely. And I think we need to have at least offering that training every
Consistently.
Yeah.
And then that way we'll be more self-sufficient.
Exactly.
When things happen.
A large, there's a group, like I said, he's kind of connecting new trainees to the old guard. And if you want to connect in, he'll invite you, he'll put you on that email list when he has these meetings. At that meeting, we had the fire chief, we had, like I said, the deputy director of emergency response of Whatcom County, and I'm probably butchering the department, but he showed up, and they're all really excited to have that CERT energy out here. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so last thing, next meeting is currently scheduled for 2 p.m. Wednesday, March 19th.
Oh, boy.
Is there a preference to Zoom or in person?
So I can put you in touch with Doug. He is the CERT official trainer. And he is the deputy director of emergency response of Whatcom County. And I'm probably butchering the department, but
I won't be able to be there, as it turns out, because it's a 28-day cycle. It hits again on March 19th. As of yesterday, I do bookkeeping, and that's the one day of my whole month that I have to pay 100 people, and I don't get the information to pay
Oh.
them till about 2 o'clock, and I have to pay them by 5. So I just can't possibly do it.
Is it just the
that day.
19th, or is there a better day of the month?
Well, we had it set for Thursday originally.
Correct.
And then we bumped it to Wednesday. So I don't know what all the dynamics of that were, but on the 19th, it's just impossible.
Yeah, I like Wednesdays for me, I will not be able to participate. I have office hours, I have patients, I cannot attend Wednesdays. And when we originally surveyed, we surveyed for Thursdays. And that's when I can participate in the safety committee, or Thursdays. And I think in person is great. And
I think so too.
I know we got canceled for today, but I wanted to put forth, and I talked to the office about it today. We have a multitude of spaces to choose from if one is booked.
Yeah, I think we saw that.
Yeah. So like the library space, hardly ever booked, where they have the AA meetings. I mean, you know, that little side space. And there are multiple places in the barn. I mean, we have options so that we don't have to cancel if somebody ends up filling it or they're booking it for something else. But yes, if you could put forth, I mean, I don't know, my vote is in person and Thursdays. Otherwise I won't be able to attend.
I'm open any day of the week. It doesn't matter to me.
I'm available on Thursdays for sure, and I think your participation and availability and Judy's is key.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think we should not be contemplating Wednesdays if you both can't be there.
Well,
No, I'm good with a Tuesday. Then don't matter.
Yeah, my schedule rotates, so if I'm not working, I'm available.
Okay, I'll talk to Rick about it. We'll see if we can come up with a day that works for everybody.
okay, sweet.
All right.
All right.
Okay, so thank everybody for your participation. I will adjourn the meeting at 3:33 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Colleen, I'll
Peter.
be in touch. Colleen,
you.
I'll be in